in His Grip with Dr. Chuck Betters of Mark Inc. Ministries. Today we continue with the message from our archives titled, What Will Your Kids Think About the Church? From the series Unveiling and Understanding Revelation. Each In His Grip message is designed to help turn your heart towards Jesus and to equip you to walk by faith. Let's join Dr. Betters in the sanctuary.
Automatic teller machines, Federal Express, fax machines, home delivery, 24-hour convenience stores. All of them blossomed in the 80s. But the 90s, they tell us, is going to bring us a greater development of this demand to maximize the use of my time, you see. Companies such as banks, for example, will service this demand. You already see it beginning to happen. Remember, they used to close at 3 o'clock? Now they're all talking about extended hours. Those extended hours are going to be common hours. Banks are catching on to this. Other companies, there will be centralized service centers, they're telling us. Already they're beginning to sprout up. You can go in these centralized service areas. You can take care of your car. You can take care of your hair. You can take care of your food, all in one trip and all on one card to maximize the use of your time. And even though it will cost more money to do that, that will be okay because time is money. You see, what we're facing in the 90s is a generation that is not really going to be that concerned about how much it costs, as much as they are going to be concerned about how much time I'm going to have to put into it. Certainly you can see the application to the church. Volunteerism in the church is going to be a thing of the past. You see, the church is primarily made up of volunteers. We have a few people who are professionals or who are paid to do the work. It's their full-time position. But then you have a church runs literally on volunteerism. We're already finding that. We're already sensing that from some of the baby boomers. You're more interested in what your volunteerism in the church is going to cost you, not in terms of money, but in terms of time. We don't have a whole lot of problems in this congregation with money, but we do have a problem with time. Some of us give guilt money because we don't give the time. We think that by giving it financially that satisfies the requirement to God. And yet God demands of us commitment in terms of time. But you see, we're raising a whole new generation where time is going to become a god. Thirdly, they're asking the question of commitment versus flexibility. Consider the signs of reduced commitment. Listen just to a few things. We have a 50% divorce rate. Adults have few close friends. Not like our parents who used to have many friends. Brand loyalty has dropped by over 60%. You remember you had to have that little alligator on your sweater? Brand loyalty is going down the tubes. There's a declining commitment among the boomers to join an organization. They don't like to join clubs, and they don't like to join the church. One of the interesting statistics is the percentage of people who sign up for a specific event and fail to show up. We see that in the church all the time. We have people sign up for things and they never show up. Why? Because they want flexibility. They don't want commitment. They don't want anybody to restrict them in any way. And so if something better comes along the line, off we go in that direction. Even though we've signed up, made the commitment, we want to have the freedom to change our minds. The percentage of parents who feel it is necessary to stay in a marriage for the sake of the kids has dramatically dropped. Remember years ago? For the sake of the kids, people would stick it out in the marriage. We don't think that way anymore. We don't care about what the kids think. Commitment is viewed negatively because it limits our abilities to feel independent and free. We want independence and freedom. We want to experience new things. We want to change our minds on the spur of the moment and to focus upon self-gratification rather than on helping others. People are willing to make sacrifices, but there's a provision. We're willing to sacrifice. We're willing to make commitments only when the expected outcome exceeds what we must sacrifice as the result of that commitment. We will demand elements that give us total control over our lives. We want to be in control, and woe to the person, they tell us, in the next 10 years who seeks to limit our options. We want options. You know, one of the greatest businesses coming down the pike, in-home exercise equipment. We want options. We're not interested in joining clubs anymore. We don't want to belong to any. We don't want to make commitments. We want to have the flexibility to do whatever we want to do. Unlisted telephone numbers and telephone screening will abound in the next 10 years. When somebody dials your number, you're going to know not only who's calling, you can already find that out now, you're even going to be able to look at them. If you don't want to talk to them, you just act like you're not home. Why? Because we want no commitments. We want to be flexible. Bring that home to the church, and you can see what kind of a problem the next generation is going to face. Dare to invade my privacy by telling me about my sins. Dare to preach a gospel to me that demands commitment. Dare to speak of being a slave to Christ. Dare to talk to me about sticking by my vows. No siree. We want to be flexible. We want to have no commitments. Fourthly, they tell us that in the year 2000, the question of group identity or individualism is going to have to be addressed. We're already experimenting with new household styles, new different kinds of living arrangements, novel religious philosophies. You see them beginning to abound. Just a few years ago, we saw some of the new cults coming out, the New Age cults coming out, and it will branch into many different forms. Why? Because we want to experience individualism, express ourselves. We don't want to be identified with a group. Novel new leisure activities will abound. Different ways to entertain ourselves. Different ways to jet ski. Different ways to entertain and to fulfill and to satiate the desire for my individual expression. We'll do it through our clothing and our hairstyles and colors and choice of music. They tell us by the year 2000 it will be obsolete to call yourself a conservative or a liberal. That's too restrictive. We will be unwilling to refer to ourselves as Catholic or Protestant. We will not want to be identified with those kinds of labels. We want to be spontaneous to circumstances and opportunities. When they come down the pike, we want to have the freedom to say, yes, I'll go in that direction, or no, I won't, to express my individualism. The problem is this repulsion of group activity and group involvement will also have its negative impact in that it will generate tremendous loneliness. Our desire to be individuals will alienate us from others. We will have fewer and fewer friends because we want to be individuals, and there will be an increase, a dramatic increase in that feeling, empty feeling of loneliness. Of course, when we talk about the church, what will happen to body life? What will happen to the body that wants to come together? We're already beginning to see this. We're already beginning to see the repulsion that the boomers and yes, even the busters, you know who the busters are, the children of the boomers. They have a label now. They're called the busters. You see, they're the ones who were born between 64 and 77. The busters, they already have a repulsion to group involvement. What is the church? It is the corporate expression of the body of Christ. And if this mindset continues and infiltrates the church, what's going to happen? We're going to be off in 150 different directions doing our own thing, and there will be no cohesiveness to the body. The church will be in danger. And already it's there. Fifthly, we'll look at tradition. What will stand, old or new tradition? You know, it's interesting when you look at the baby boomers after 2 decades of serious efforts on our part to tear down old traditions. They tell us by the year 2000 that the boomers will begin to search for roots and stability. They're going to begin to develop their own traditions with meaning because they've torn down all the traditions of their parents. And they find out that their insatiable desire for more things and more individualism and more flexibility has cost them something. And they're going to wonder where it all went. Where did it all go? And so they'll begin to form new traditions. But see, the problem is the busters, the children of the boomers, have been weaned on success. They've been weaned on wealth and comfort. The problem is they lack, and you can already see this, they lack the same energy. And they lack the same creativity and the same aggressiveness of their boomer parents. They're not trailblazers. They're more laid back and yet expectant that their lifestyle will be maintained. You see what we've got here? We've got the danger of the second generation church like the Ephesians faced, where they lose the respect for their spiritual roots. They forget the traditions of their fathers and what it cost them to bring them spiritually to this point. I've even noted it among the busters. There is a loss of enthusiasm, generally speaking. Talking to my own busters last night, it was interesting to hear what they had to say as we were reminiscing over just a few years ago what the youth programs were like just a few years ago. And the enthusiasm that was there, even within the busters' generation, it was there. But you see, our kids are now being raised to make no commitments, especially to the church. And if something better comes down the pike, go for it, baby, as long as it satisfies your individualism. And so even within the busters, there are 2 generations. One that remembers what it's like to be enthused for God, and one that could care less. We're going to be facing an age of information. Are you aware of this? That the volume of information we now have available to us is only 3% of what we will have in the year 2010. I thought we had a lot of information, but it's only 3% of what we will have in the year 2010. You are now in somebody's data bank somewhere. The Donnelly Directory people have caught this. Their marketing experts have caught this, and based on combined databases and statistical modeling techniques, you know what they've done? They've developed systems that can identify with great accuracy your TV viewing habits, your preferences, your product purchasing potential by brand, your household demographics, and your key attitudes and values. And they pull all that information together, and it's packaged into a multi-million-piece mailing list sent only to the households that represent the highest potential for sales of any given product. And that's only the beginning. We're hearing talk now of computer mall shopping. You don't have to go to the malls anymore. You just hook up your modem. And you plug in the proper program, and it will put you at Christiana Mall, for example. You say, well, I don't want Christiana Mall specific. I want specifically Strawbridge and Clothier. So you punch in Strawbridge and Clothier, and there on your screen will appear a picture of Strawbridge and Clothier. Plug in the department you want. Then you're into the department. Talk about or plug in the kind of sweater you want to wear, and you plug it in, and there you're face to face with the rack and a description of each of the items. Plug in a few numbers, put it on your charge card, it's mailed out to you the next day. Don't even have to leave your home. The mall will literally belong to the kids. Because I guarantee you, with that setup, they'll be the only ones that go. The age of information. And you know what's encouraging to me as I think about that? The power of technology that will be available to the church to preach the gospel. The wealth of information that will be at our fingertips to take the gospel of Christ and preach it to a world that is looking for something to fill those voids. But oh, may we evangelists from the past who took that media of television and disgraced the gospel of Christ and continue to today. The wealth of information. The shape of our families and our friends, seventhly, will be in question. Statistics now tell us that 50% of all adults under 30 will co-inhabit before they marry. 60% of all second marriages right now end in divorce. 1 of 4 households consist of a single parent with 1 or more children, and 6 of every 10 children that will be born this year before they reach the age of 18 will be a member of a single parent family. 6 out of 10. And despite all of this overwhelming and negative, all of these overwhelming and negative statistics, the vast majority of people, when asked the question, what gives you the greatest sense of happiness and fulfillment, you know what sits at the top of the list? Stable family relationships. We want it, but we don't have it. And our kids aren't going to get it. We have a new ideal for our women today. Today's woman believes it is her right to be both a mother and a career woman. You remember in the 50s and the 60s, the number one priority of a woman was what? To raise her children. That's gone. Today, it is her number one priority is to be fulfilled. I'm so sick of that word. Fulfilled in all areas of her life. 92% of the women believe that the child care and daycare facilities that they place their children into are substandard. And yet they still do it. They still do it. Multiple TV sets allows us less interaction with the other family members. You realize that right now less than 30 minutes per week of honest, interesting dialogue takes place between a child and their mother. 15 minutes per week between a child and their father. Because we're off doing our own individual thing. And the absence of valued friendships will produce great loneliness. What does that say to the church? It says to us we need to create and develop some healthy role model marriages. We need to stand against that tide and hold our homes up as examples of what stability and what spiritual freedom is all about. We need to hold up the examples of godly marriages, of Christian homes where the mother and the father truly love the Lord Jesus Christ and have demonstrated that to their children. We need to hold those models up, and we need to address the loneliness that will continue to increase as the years march by, as we continue our quest for individualism. Who are our heroes? Who will build the dreams of our young people? Who will take the young mind and cultivate and capture the vision of being giants for Christ? Who will do that? And then look eighthly at the religious beliefs and involvement. 4 out of every 5 Americans describe themselves as Christians. Did you know that? 4 out of 5. It's interesting to note when they're asked the sub-questions, what do they mean when they say Christian? Listen to this. Only 19% of those speak of a personal relationship to Jesus Christ. 22% when asked, well, what do you mean by Christian, say, I don't know. 21% say it means to live differently than other people do. 14% say it means to love and do good things. 14% says it means to believe in God, even though the devil believes in God. 11% say it means to go to church. And 10% say it means to be a good person. You see the twisted values that our culture has? We don't even know what it means to be a Christian. We don't even know what it means to have faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. We're losing the enthusiasm. Many hold tenaciously to the orthodox doctrines of historic Christianity. They believe in the virgin birth. They believe Jesus is God. They believe in his death on the cross. They believe in his resurrection. They believe in the inerrancy of the Bible. They hold tenaciously to the historic doctrines, yet loyalty to the church is waning. 95% of all Americans have at least one Bible in their homes, and yet only 43% even read it casually. We're a nation of Bible illiterates. 84% say that being a member of a church is important, yet barely half of them belong and see membership as restrictive, and they see membership as baggage for themselves. By the year 2000, we are told less than half will say that religion is important to them. The boomers' search for identity, their quest for fulfillment, is not going to be had in the church. They're not going to look to the church for the answers. You see, the church will stand for moral absolutes, and that's an invasion of privacy. And I don't want anybody telling me what to do with my life. And so although I don't have any meaning or purpose in my life, I will look somewhere else for the answers. And it's interesting to also note that in spite of all of that, there is an international explosion of the Christian faith where the walls are tumbling down. In civilizations like East Germany and China and parts of Africa, where they have not experienced the freedoms and materialism that we have experienced, the gospel of Jesus Christ will begin to take root, and there will be an international explosion of the Christian faith while we in America keep trying to find ourselves. Remember that expression from the 60s? I've got to find myself. And the boomers are still as lost today as they were in the 60s. We're still looking to find out who we are. I know who I am. I'm a child of the living God. I found identity in Him. I know who I am. I am a child of the King, the one who died on the cross for my sins, and He is the one who has given me fulfillment and purpose. And yes, it means I must come to Him in faith and confess my sins, and certainly He invades my privacy, for my sins are laid bare before Him, and yes, He has called me to preach the gospel to everyone that He brings into my path. That's my identity. That's my purpose. We're going to look to syncretistic religions. We'll bring the best from here and the best from there, and we'll put it together. We'll look for churches that are syncretistic churches, that give us greater flexibility. We'll look for churches that have the programs or the worship service or the preaching that best meets my desire to be fulfilled. But don't ask me to make any commitments even when I find that church. Even when I arrive, don't ask me to commit. That invades my privacy, you see. Our leisure time will be guarded. What we do for fun will be guarded, and so we will spend less and less time in the Word. You see, because we're too busy playing. And we will give that privilege to the pastor and to our spiritual leaders and let them fulfill our appetites. Let them tell us what we need to know about the Bible. Let them study it for us, and then we'll learn from them. But don't ask me to get into it. Don't ask me to pray. The unchurched, when asked the question, is the church relevant for today? 62% of them say no. No. I believe we need a renewed call to principles of discipleship. We must learn to do the faith in creative and practical ways. The shifting sands of American values demands that we creatively develop up-to-date methods for reaching people for Christ without, and I underscore this, without compromising the gospel of Christ.
Thank you for listening to In His Grip, a ministry of Mark Inc. We just concluded part 2 of the message titled, What Will Your Kids Think About the Church? From the series Unveiling and Understanding Revelation. You can download this sermon at www.markinc.org. At markinc.org, you'll find numerous free resources that offer help and hope to the hurting. You can also safely give online to help keep In His Grip on the air. Thank you in advance for your support.